Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g. You're here with the crew of
Ohm-g, the podcast.
Welcome, peeps. Today we are joined by our friend Deanna Frey, straight out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Deanna offers multiple modalities through her website, blueskiesjourney.com. Today we welcome her expertise on the topic of angels and archangelic light. All right, this is Camille.
This is Lynn.
This is Brenda Sue.
And this is Chandra. Welcome back.
We are so glad to have you, and we're going to get started out. Deanna, if you'll just tell us about yourself, how you got started, and a little bit about angels, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I come to all of this with a background that's different than maybe people would expect. And I think that's what makes what I do and what I teach and what I talk about more approachable to so many people. So my background is, besides just being a really curious kid, I'm a scientist by background. Actually, I'm a chemist. And a lot of times when you say scientist, it's not too bad. But when you say chemist, people kind of hold up their fingers and go, oh, please stand back. That was the most horrifying class. Anyway, I'm a chemist. I have a master's degree in organic chemistry from Duke. I spent over a couple decades in chemistry research and pharmaceutical research. So in all aspects of that research. So I've been in science a long time, and that is still very much my background and how I think about things. It was kind of everybody, I think there's so many people nowadays having this feeling like they're an awakening, like there's something more. And mine started, I don't know, I guess about 13 years ago. I mean, it had already kind of been going on, but I really started feeling like there's something else. And I started investigating things. I had a particular reading with someone that got me started in doing some of the research and kind of looking into things. I started with Reiki because Reiki was it was kind of a good stepping stone from science, right? It still had some background. So I started with that. And as any good scientist or curious person does, I was looking for anything I could find to get more information. So I went to local expos and stuff like that where they had people talking and I could get in and just listen to all these various different things. Eventually, I hooked up with a group that was meeting local at the time, once a month, that happened to be about angels. Now, I don't have a background that makes me think about angels. In fact, probably the best I would say is like, oh yeah, as a kid, we had angels. Look, we have this angel watching over us kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But I didn't really think a lot about it, but I enjoyed the camaraderie of this group and getting to know things. And so I started learning about things. And that's kind of really where I started very slowly to work with angels, because as that scientist, there's kind of this thought of, well, they're not going to talk to me. They may talk to everybody else. They may interact with everybody else, but I don't have that thing, right? I couldn't meditate at that point. My big meditation was black. Like everybody else would be, oh, I see this and this. I'm like, I see black. Yay, me. So I didn't expect them to do anything, but I kind of approached it with this kind of, well, what if it does work? And I think the leader of the group at the time talked about her experience with some stuff at 9/11, which was really interesting. And the way she described it was so similar to a dream that I had had recently. It made me think, well, maybe I do have something here that I don't understand. And so then I started with Archangel Michael and then kind of worked my way through. I invited, as with Reiki. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Brent.
Well, I was just going to say that Reiki seems to be the gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly, yes.
Lots of us.
And angel numbers were big for me whenever I first started on my journey, my spiritual journey as well, 20 some years ago, because Doreen Virtue, was big at the time. And I was seeing numbers everywhere. And so I got all the books about angel numbers. And that was really the beginning for me of Reiki and angels.
Same.
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 That's exactly what I tell all my students, my Reiki students. It's kind of like, well, welcome to the gateway drug.
Right? Exactly.
This kind of opens the door. And I know it certainly did for me. It helped open my intuition because of you're opening that channel. And so it helped open my intuition. And then I started learning more.
And it's a good way to get a little more comfortable with energies flowing through you and how to feel them and understand them and become attuned, no pun intended, just to the feeling of different things, energies flowing through your body. It awakens all of that for you.
It's very cool. And what I will say, though, is this, and I have learned over the years, this was part of it, that again, unlike all of my wonderful colleagues, all the people I was in classes with or people I met, they would feel the energy. They would see the things. And I have learned that's part of my path, that because I'm a scientist, it's like you just have to step out on trust.
Yeah.
You don't get to feel the other stuff. You are going to be the person that helps other people realize that anyone can do this if they just apply themselves and just believe that. I mean, just kind of trust that it's going to happen. And so my mantra with all of this was, well, what if it does work? What if? If it doesn't, it doesn't. No big deal. No, nothing lost. But what if it does? And so that's kind of how I approached everything. So I started working when I was doing Reiki. I started working with Michael because many of us know about Archangel Michael. That's that protection, right? If you ask people about archangels, he's one of the ones most people know about, right? That's all the protection. And then another one most people know about is Archangel Raphael, which is healing. So I already had those. When I did Reiki, I was like, well, I'll just invite them in. I wasn't that I particularly sensed them or knew they were there. I just doesn't hurt. I'll just bring them along. That's how I started kind of working specifically with those, learning about the others to some degree, but not necessarily having a real experience with them per se, but just kind of assuming they were there, and feeling protected and seeing things happen. And so I'm like, okay, well, it must be true. I mean, there's no, it's kind of like there's just too many coincidences. Even as a scientist, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of coincidences. So it must be working. And then at one point, someone came to me and said, you should try Angelic Light. And I had never, ever heard of that. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And it was a little hard to describe. And I think it still is kind of a little hard for me to describe to people what it is exactly. It's more of a feeling than it is a description.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm already kind of working with some angels. Why not? I'll see what the class is. And when I took the class, I just fell in love with it. And it's not even just the archangel part, it's the energy of it, et cetera. And so that's what got me started. So then once I got in there, the other interesting thing I will say is that really opened me up. I started then being able to really start having, my clairvoyance really increased, my clairaudience really increased. All the things really came on board the more I practiced with it. So it's just this beautiful, beautiful energy. And I always encourage people to even take the class or experience it, because it really seems, even clients that come through and get healing, I've watched them over time as we work with them, and they came in and they were a little intuitive. And by the end, they're like, wow, I'm like, wow, you're pretty intuitive. That was awesome after several sessions. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. That isn't how I got really good at talking with them. That came, but that was how I started getting with Angelic Light.
Okay, this is the perfect time for this question then, because
Sure.
the main thing that I want to know, and I imagine a lot of other people do as well, what is the difference between angels and spirit guides? Or is there a difference? How do you see that?
Absolutely. So in most cases, there are some that are not true, but we're going to talk about most cases. In most cases, angels, whether they're archangels or any other kind of angel, are energetic beings that have never incarnated in a body.
Mm.
So they've never had that experience. They've always just been this beautiful energy that supports all the other beings. Whereas our guides have at least incarnated somewhere, at least once. Now, usually if they're helping us here, they will have incarnated here, because that's how they can be guides, right? I look at it as somebody said, well, if I have a guardian angel, why do I need a guide? And if I have a guide, why do I need a guardian angel, right? Well, the guardian angel kind of keeps things from the really big picture, that big divine picture, kind of looking at the whole universe, the whole thing, the whole soul's journey, all that stuff. But your guides, they understand what it's like to live in a body and how to have to go about the daily stuff. They understand the limitations of the physical. They understand kind of the emotions, all that stuff that happens here because they've experienced it at some point. Where the angels just don't understand what it's like to. It's like there are many times I have to say to my spiritual team and go, you guys, I'm still in a physical body here. I can't do that. Slow down. You're going to have to back off. I can't handle that. Give me a chance to catch up. So that's how I'd say the difference is, Camille. One is really looking at you from an energetic, much higher perspective. And the other one has the ability to really help you here on earth because they have been here at least once.
Great description. Thank you.
So I'm interested in understanding more about this healing work because I've honestly never heard of it before. So tell me like how you work with that energy, that archangel energy with your healing work.
Sure. So the first thing I think to explain it is archangelic light, although it says archangels in there, right? So obviously archangels are part of it, but at its core, it is divine feminine energy. And so it is that beautiful divine feminine energy that works with archangels. It's not, even though it says archangelic light, it is not just archangels. So we work with divine avatars too. So when we talk about avatars, it's the way we refer to them, but you can think of them, most of them, as like ascended masters, male and female, mostly female, but sometimes I'll have male avatars come in as well. So, and this particular energy is unlike, I'll compare things to Reiki because that's something that a lot of people are familiar with. Reiki is, in general, is a hands-on modality. How it can be, I don't necessarily always practice it fully hands-on because in the US, you have to be real careful about that, right? People can get real touchy,
Yeah.
no pun intended, about that. But generally, it's a hands-on procedure. Archangelic light is absolutely hands-off the entire time. So you are working, your hands are in the energetic field around somebody, in their auric field. You are not on their body. So there's that kind of difference right away. It is a hand position kind of thing. I mean, there is like, you're going through and working through the chakras, just like what you do with something like Reiki. What I will say for me, I always like to compare the two because I work with the two together. When I do an energy healing session, I work with both at the same time and allow the energy to decide what we're doing when we're doing it. For me, Reiki feels more masculine. And why do I say that? Because it's assertive. It's a doing kind of energy. So when I'm working with energy, Reiki to clear something out, boy, it gets right in there and it clears things right out. Or if somebody hurts the knee, for instance, if I put my hands on, they get quite warm. And so that goes right to the knee and they're like, oh, that feels really good. I can feel it's helping, etc. That's very quick and on the spot. Archangelic light, on the other hand, heals things by healing why something happened. So it goes all the way to the beginning. It's that deep inside thing. So in other words, if I hurt my knee, why did I hurt my knee? What am I afraid of moving forward with? What am I afraid of, advancing? Because the legs and the knees and like the flexibility, all those kind of things, whatever it is, that underlying piece. And so when it goes to heal that, it takes a little bit longer because it heals the origination, right? But it still ultimately heals the thing that's going on. The difference in the feeling, Reiki for me is very warm. Archangelic light is cool. In fact, I just had students yesterday and they're like, I'm really cold. I'm like, me too. I'm like, we have to change our clothes halfway through and put something warm on because we get really cold from channeling that energy all day. It's a cool spiral kind of light, whereas Reiki is more direct. So that hopefully that gives people a kind of feeling. Does that help a little bit, Brenda, with the difference between the two? And
that's very interesting because I experience whenever I'm doing energy work, I'll experience heat sometimes. Sometimes it's very cold, and I'm not always 100% sure where things are coming from, except my own intuitive, like what I feel like it is. Because I feel like when the Hathors come through, they're very cold.
I was just thinking,
I get cold.
I was thinking the very same thing. I get like internal body chills when they come in, and I immediately start swaying in a circle. It's a very spiral type energy, and they're like the grandmother type.
Yeah,
love. So
I wonder.
it's very divine feminine. So that's
I wonder
very,
if it's
very interesting.
Very similar to the angelics, because I think they have that same type of like mothering, loving, nurturing energies. That's very interesting.
It's always fun for me when I'm teaching Reiki because I watch some of the students, and sometimes when they're practicing, so I'm watching them practice. And if they start to move a little bit, like and I'm like, well, and they may ask me about Angelic Light, and I'm like, well, you probably already got it. You're already kind of doing it. I can see you got your hands on there, and you move from one place and you're fine. You move to someplace else and you're starting to rock a little bit. I'm like, because that's how I know too for myself. I'll be perfectly fine. I'm moving along, and then I get to a space, and it's like, whoo! I catch myself moving. I'm like, oh, that's what's going on there.
That's really cool. Do you have any like sign whenever your angels are around? Do you feel them these days now that you tuned in more? Do you see like synchronicities or numbers with them?
Most of the time, it's really a direct communication. It's not like it's like they're not with me necessarily unless I kind of call to them, right? And then I may feel goosebumps or something like that. My guardian angel loves to work with me through a particular song on the radio because that's how. So remember I said when I first started, I was, I'll put it nicely in the terms of scientists, I was a little dense. So I would say things, after working with that, I could feel that he was there behind me on my right, and I could feel that energy, but I could never get any more than that. And after about 2 years, I remember one morning I was getting ready for work, and I was really just frustrated. And I remember saying kind of out loud as I was kind of washing my hair, whatever, and I'm going, I'm getting really tired of just saying, hey, angel, I would like a name or something. This is ridiculous. And then I was just frustrated and expecting like anybody's going to answer you, right? I was just kind of putting out that frustration, like, right. And as I got out of the shower, I always have the radio playing on in the background. I got out of the shower and I was drying off. And all of a sudden, the song on the radio was by Paul Simon. And the words that came through, like right afterwards, was "Just call me Al." And I just burst out laughing. I was like, are you kidding? And because the timing, again, the synchronicity, the timing was, I'm like, I really do. I'm serious. I want a name. And it was like, just call me Al. And I was like, okay, so that's Al's name. Now, here's another really interesting synchronicity. When I took the Angelic Light class and we were going through the manual, in that manual, Angelic Light is sometimes abbreviated as AL. And so we were reading stuff and it was like, and sometimes Al, AL. And I'm like, Al, oh my God. Right. And so it's like, aha. So I don't know, but yeah. And honestly, do I believe that his name is Al? No. I mean, my guess is that most of the archangels have names that we couldn't even comprehend, right? But it's all about what we want, right? In other words, it's their interaction with us. Every angel is going to interact with us according to our energy. And so, yeah, so that apparently he thought that was fun, and we get a great laugh out of it. And,
So I find that really interesting that you were talking about, like you were in that moment of frustration, right? Of like not knowing what to call this energy that's around you, when that's really, especially when we talk about angelics who've like never had a human incarnation, they're all just vibration and energy. They've never been incarnated in a body. What is a name to them? Like, it's all about our need for the nomenclature. Like, what should I call you? And I find it very interesting that they took you from that kind of like what we would think of as lower vibrational frustration into laughter of like this funny little song, but it really having like a synchronicity meaning to synchronicity to actually what you were working with, which is Angelic Light. The names only mean anything to us. We can call them whatever resonates with us, because names really mean nothing when you're in that energetic field. And I find that really interesting, because I know when I started my awakening journey and started speaking with my guides for a number of years, I got really hung up on them not giving me a name. Right. And it makes it so much easier when you can let go of that.
Yeah. And did help me, right? It was one of those things of like, and I heard it and I laughed and it was kind of like, really? Okay, really? That's what we're going to do? But it still brings me a smile. And the funny thing about that is that connection, the scientist part of it, which is really interesting. I will hear, because that song is not a current song, right? I will hear that song in the most unusual places. And so as soon as I hear it, I'm like, okay, what do you want to tell me? Because it'll be like I'm in a grocery store in some other state. I'm on the elevator. Sometimes it's on the radio. It could be anywhere. And I'm like, okay, I got you. Sometimes it's just, oh, I'm here, whatever. And like you said, Chandra, it doesn't really matter whether that's his name or not. That's what works for us, right? If I wanted to call him Paul tomorrow, I'm sure, well, maybe he wouldn't. But it's not about that. It is just like you said, it's really our need to do that. And that kind of takes it to the next part of this with working with the archangels. I've been teaching quite a few Angelic Light classes this month, actually. And so as I talk with people to get to know these archangels, what I tell everyone, and tell, of course, the listeners here, with any of these energetic beings, especially angels, it's all about your personal relationship with them. Just like everything about your personal relationship with Source, Divine, Universe, your experience is your thing because you have a unique vibration. It doesn't matter what the person next to you says they see or how they interact. It doesn't matter because it's got to be that pure connection that you have. So a lot of times I see the angels a certain way. That's what works for me, right? That's how they behave. And yet somebody else I know, they behave entirely different, look different, whatever. And initially, when I first started, I think I was concerned because there's that scientist part about the facts are the facts. So they must be this way. They have to be this way if you're doing it right. And only as I kind of walked along my path and kind of opened up more and more did I realize it doesn't matter, right? That's not the important part. And here's a really interesting thing that happened to me very early on that kind of cemented this. I like this story because it really did make a difference. I was in a meditation class and it was a group, and we were doing a thing where we were going to meet our guides. And I had been doing this for a while. I really was terrible with meditation. I rarely got anything. And you're sitting in this class with people who like, oh, talk about your guides. And they're like, and they give you this long story about what their guide gave them, what they looked like, and all this stuff, like I was reading a book story. I'm like, my God, I didn't get any of that stuff and feeling kind of embarrassed. And so we went back. It was like, okay, well, we're trying it again. We're going to do another one and see something else. And so we went into meditation. And this time I finally saw a little bit of something, but all I saw was this kind of white ball of energy. It's kind of an intense ball in the middle and then kind of fading out as it moves out. And it was just kind of hovering in the middle. And I was like, Chandra, this is the frustration part again, right? I was like, okay, so you're my guide. Great. You're this ball of light. I'm like, everybody. And I was frustrated. And my question was, okay, so you're my guide. Everybody else is seeing something. And all I get is a ball of white light. Okay, why? Why am I only getting this ball of white light? And the answer came back very patient with me, but also kind of like, a little bit of a slap, like, hello, was the answer that came back very solemnly was, because you see us as we really are. You don't need to see the other. You see us as we really are. And so that kind of stuck with me, right? It's kind of like, so at the end of the day, they're all just everything, whether they're guides or angels, or they're all different frequencies of energy. That's what they really are. And all the rest of it, and they're just giving me these words now, all the rest of it is like window dressing, right? Mm-hmm. It's whatever window dressing we need to feel better about interacting with them, whether they're angels or guides or whatever. And so that really allowed me to be able to talk with them and kind of not feel like, well, I'm not getting this right. It doesn't look the same as everybody else's, that kind of thing. And the other piece of that, and it just went out of my head. It was it was something like that. Go ahead. Anyway, so I'm sure it's because I'm supposed to pause for a question. So
I was going to ask you, talking about the way that angels are perceived. So I'm glad you brought up the ball of light and the energy. I think so many of us rely on childhood picture books or Renaissance art where we see the wings coming out of the back and the silken robes and the ethereal features that are human-like as well. Is it better to just think about them as balls of light or energy in the room? Or is it okay to assign some kind of picture to them and start talking? What do you recommend for someone who's just getting started?
I think you should do, and I hate to use the word should, I think probably one of the best things that you can do is just do whatever you're comfortable with. So when I first started, even when I was working with them, I really didn't see them. I just kind of had a sense, and I couldn't see a color. I just kind of had a sense that there was an energy there. And again, remember that trust thing. I just had that trust factor. It's kind of like, well, I see things happen. And the other interesting thing as part of my path is I don't get to necessarily feel or experience it. But when I work with other people, they're the ones that tell me. It's this constant thing of like, I don't get to, they tell me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they'll be like, oh, this was here and that was there. I'm like, okay, well, then they must be there. And that's part of my path that I'm supposed to be walking, of the absolute truth, like let go of the science and just trust kind of thing. So do what feels right for you. And the other thing I tell my students, and I always encourage people to do, is how I finally had an interaction with these angels, really more specific, was I sat down and I decided to meditate pick a particular angel, and I would just meditate every day with that angel going, I would like to get to know you. And what I really did was say, hey, I really need to have some way that I can identify you. I would like to see you in a way that if I saw that quickly, I would know it's you. And so I would just meditate until I got that. Some of the angels for me popped right in. Some of them did not easily, and it took a long time to get them. Some of my angels, when I look at them, I'm trying to think. Michael often has wings, but not always. Most of the other ones, honestly, don't have wings necessarily. They may have wings if they want to use them for something, but generally they're just kind of looking like people. Does it matter? No, it's my thing. And I have friends that look at the people differently, right? They see those angels differently than I do. They may see the angel as female, whereas I see it as male. Does it matter? Absolutely not. They have no gender. They're just energy. And the other piece I think that's important here that I learned along the way, which I think is really important for people, is that these energetic beings, our guides, the angels, are all really in awe of us. And it's really interesting because we are very much here in our earth brain and think, I mean, these are these amazing energy beings. They can do everything. Why would they possibly be in awe of us?
I got a chill when you said that. That's cool. Go ahead.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's because we chose to come here. This is one of the most difficult places to incarnate. Because when we come, we chose what we were going to do, and then we come and we don't get to remember any of it. So we have to discover ourselves and who we are all over again. That's part of the journey. We have to really who are we at a soul level? That's what we work through this whole thing. Whatever lessons we need to do, all those things, and all within a corporal body. So all the things that we can do as energy, we can't do here. And so it's so you chose to do this and or help humanity or whatever the things are that you chose to do here, big and or small, as we might think them small, but they're really not. So they are in awe of us because we took on that really difficult task. And so they're very interested in helping us. That's why our guides help us. Otherwise, why bother? They could go have fun. Why would they be here? Right? And so the angels really are the same way. So they're very much here. So with that knowledge that they are in awe of us and they are here to help us with our lives, that gives you the opportunity to think of them a lot more as equals because you're just in different forms. And so if you do that, wouldn't you be willing to ask for something? So when I first started, I was just so grateful to get anything. I would just take whatever, the energy, however it came in, whatever came in, because I was just like, well, at least I got something. Thank God for that. Oh my God, I'll take whatever you give me. And so I could get bombarded or whatever, because I was just so grateful that I got anything. And it wasn't until I understood that they really care about us and are trying to help us and are in awe of us and really want to see us succeed that I realized, wait a minute, I can ask things. Kind of like what I said earlier. It's like, remember, guys, I'm in an earth body here. I can't take the energy coming in that quickly. You can't do that. This body can't handle that. Or things like, or ask for, just like I said in meditation, hey, I want some way to look at you, right? I want some way. And to be able to ask that instead of just sitting there and waiting for them to give me whatever it was. It's like, no, what do you want? We're here. What do you want? Okay, we'll do that. And an example, here's a wonderful, you'll probably laugh at this. I hope you do. Anyway, when I sat meditating with Archangel Uriel, it took me a little while to get one. Now, for anybody who knows about Uriel, his name means light of God. And oftentimes you will see him represented as a torch, or oftentimes a hand with a flame in it, because he is the light of God. Okay. So when I first started meditating, I kind of saw that. I'm like, okay, well, that's all right. That's fine. It's just not particularly fun, but okay. But as I did I just kept doing the meditation. As I got the next time he came to me, and this is so funny. I still remember, makes me laugh, which is funny because he's so serious. It was as the bust of Caesar. And I literally mean the bust of Caesar. I'm sure you've seen them before, those white marble busts with his head to the side and the little wreath on and ever. And so here's the bust of Caesar talking to me, not looking at me because he's from the side, talking to me. And I was trying so hard not to laugh. I'm like, really? But was very serious. And so for many, many years, that's how I saw Uriel, as the bust of Caesar. I'm like, now he's got a body, but he's still got the little thing around his head and whatever. And he's an older gentleman as compared, when I say gentleman, but you know what I'm saying. He's an older male as opposed to some of the other angels that work with me are younger. But it's just funny, right? Bust of Caesar. That doesn't look even remotely angelic. And I don't know why I needed that, Tim, to see. He decided that was how I needed to see him. And it's funny. And maybe it's because it was supposed to be funny. And it's supposed to be a way for me to help bring other people on board and say, see, it doesn't have to be this great,
it got
serious
you
thing.
Out of your head enough.
Right.
To, like, it got you into that space of curiosity of like, well, why in the world would you show me that? And just that energetic shift, I think, got you open enough to start receiving whatever they had to bring through. I mean, sometimes they have to trick us. I mean, really, to get us out of our own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To just shift you into a vibration that they can use and they can come through.
And if I think about it, what's really kind of fun about that is that he presented as kind of a middle-aged male, right? And so in a very serious tone. And so he's being and he does. Usually when I talk with him, he's more serious and he's about helping things. But what's really funny is he also did it in a fun way. It's like we're being funny at the same time, or amusing at the same time that we're being serious. Like, this is a serious look of person, but we're doing it in a slightly amusing way, right? And as you said, Chandra, whenever we're in that vibration of amusement as well, it raises our energy. That's why laughter is good and song is good. All of those things raise our energy, which makes it easier for us to communicate. So all of that goes together. So exactly, they're going to come through. And I have one archangel who loves to pick on me, kind of like an older brother. You can imagine if I was like 13 and he was like in college, right? And that kind of age difference. And I'll say something and he'll come back and say, well, that's what you said you wanted. Because I'll use some turn of phrase and he'll literally bring something. And I'll be like, okay, fine, smarty pants, kind of stuff like that. So that joking kind of situation. And they're all different. The other thing for new people to consider is this. I have a dear friend who has heard angels for a while, and I love her so much. And I was just kind of in awe of how easily it worked for her. And I was waiting to hear, I'm like, well, maybe I'll get some of this too. And I was waiting to hear the angels, and I just never could get there. And then finally they said to me, what do you think you're going to get? Right. And so those thoughts, what I realized is they were communicating all the time. I was expecting a different voice, right? I was expecting to clearly hear, here's this one, and here's that one, and here's something else. And for some people, that may be true. But for some people, it isn't. For me, it isn't. But that doesn't mean they aren't communicating with me. And so what it really took was, as I started working with them, they have different ways of speaking. They have different cadences. Archangel Camuel, who talks with me a lot, really has a smile. You can hear the smile in his voice because he's just always smiling, right? Gabriel happens to tease me a lot. Michael treats me like I'm his little sister. Like I'm like 5 and he's, I mean, but they all talk slightly different. And so even though their words come in kind of, I guess, my voice, because it's my brain, right? The voice is the same. The tone is different. And so if people are starting and they're expecting to hear higher level, like I hear a bass and a tenor and an alto, you may or may not. If you don't assume that you're not hearing them correctly.
Right.
So that's how they differentiated too. You can tell the difference. Just like we have personalities, so do they, at least as they interact with me.
There are different vibrations are coming through in the personality that you perceive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
just like we do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get tripped up on that, like not receiving it the way that they think that they should. And so then they just completely are like, I'm not going to do this anymore because I'm not getting anything. But in reality, they are actually receiving. They're just not listening.
Yeah. And as the scientist, as somebody who's kind of more logical, it's kind of like following an instruction book. It's like, okay, so I did this and this is how it's supposed to happen. Well, it isn't necessarily like math where you do the equation and that's the answer you get, and then you can go back and check, right? It's like, this isn't the same realm. And so you can't apply that same, if I follow these exact steps, it's going to happen exactly this way, because it isn't, because each of us are different from the other person. I know even when I started doing card readings, because my card readings, I didn't feel comfortable doing them at all, except if they were angelic. And so I was working with them. And I remember doing the readings when I first started to be certified many years ago. And I was doing them and I'm like, how do you know you're even getting things? Things are coming in. How do you know that's not? Because it was like my thoughts, right? It was like stuff coming in. It was, you're just thinking this stuff up. And then at one point I heard them say, it's like, okay, so first of all, maybe you're not thinking, don't you think we're sending that to you first? But second of all, where do you think this comes from? Like, you just gave somebody a message about something that related to something similar that happened to you when you were like 10. Were you thinking about that until you met this person? No. So where on earth have you thought about it in many, many years? No. So did it ever occur to you that we prompted you to remember that so that you could give that reading? And once I allowed myself to think about it in that way, it's like, yeah, I wasn't thinking about any of that before we started. Where on earth did that come from?
Good point.
Right? It's like, that was like, here, remember such and such, boom. And then what always would happen is I'd say something about whatever it was, this experience was, whatever. And I would relate to them. It's like, this is what I'm getting. It reminds me of this. Does that, and they'll be like, oh my God, yes, da 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 da. I'm like, oh, okay. But again, I was expecting I don't know what I was expecting, but it led me kind of always constantly questioning about, is this right? And going, hello, you're putting too much pressure on yourself, right? You're not allowing the stuff to come in and you're assuming that it isn't right just because it's your thoughts or it's coming in a different way.
Well, it all goes back to also the fact that, especially as we kind of start to connect to these types of energies, that we assume they're outside of us rather than it all coming from within anyway. Like that memory bubbling up, yes, it came from within, but it was that vibrational match of your spirit guides, your higher self, whatever, that kind of bubbled that up. Like it's all going to come from within anyway. And we sit there expecting the voice of Michael, the archangel, to come from the outside in. And sometimes it just does not work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it reminds me a little bit of what I tell people when I'm doing like quantum healing hypnosis. Part of the thing of when you're doing hypnosis is your higher self will use whatever memories, images, symbols it has to get the message across. That's no different than your guides or your angels coming in. It's like they're trying to get a message across. Now, they don't talk, right? Realistically, they don't tell their energy. They don't have to talk. They don't. So they're trying to get a message across to us. So they're going to pull it however they can from us, right? They're going to go, like you said, Chandra, inside. And what do you have inside that will allow you to recognize what they're trying to say?
And I can just vouch for the fact I've had the quantum healing hypnosis from Deanna, and it's pretty darn incredible. She also does past life regressions and several other really cool things. You can find this on blueskiesjourney.com. And in closing, let's say I'm a listener and I want to get started. I'm intrigued with this angel business. I want to get started talking to angels. What should I be looking for on your website? Should I reach out to you directly? What's my next step?
So that's a great question, Camille. One, I do have a free consultation. So if you want to do that, we can do a quick phone chat, do something like that to talk about it. Once a month, I have something called Angel Gathering, where we start to work with angels a little bit, that always has a meditation at the end for people to do it. And it's a different topic every time. So we've got that. I also teach Angelic Light. So if you want to kind of get to start to experience this for yourself, that's a wonderful place to start, to really bring in that energy, and you'll get information about some of the archangels and to work with it. So those are some of the great ways to start. But if you have questions, you just ask.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Deanna. This has been enlightening, and looking forward to another podcast session with you about something else. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much, Deanna.
Bye, Deanna.
Take care, folks. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.